Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh and good day to everybody. So my topic of presentation today is Ummatic Counselling, an integrated approach in promoting psychological well-being. The aim of my presentation is to highlight the role of Ummatic Counselling in promoting the psychological well-being in the society. So it is based on my initially developed works on Ummatic Personality Inventory, which was based on a specific theoretical framework, which is based on the worldview of Islam. So this inventory has been used by many research scholars in their graduate works, resulting in master and doctoral theses, as well as referred in many scholarly works. There are three major elements which uh, form the foundation of Islamic psychology in this inventory, namely Ibadah, Amanah, and Ilm. The accommodation of the elements in the counseling session involving the Muslim clients allows the counselor to play a better role in perform more effective as compared to the conventional counseling. Uh, the three main elements in counseling adopted from Carl Rogers, which is widely recognized to be practiced during the counseling session, are empathy, congruence, and unconditional acceptance. So the accommodation of the three elements of the Islamic psychology is important in developing the Islamic personality of counselors. These elements will be able to strengthen their capability in handling psychological issues faced by the Muslim clients. The development of a strong Islamic personality in a Muslim counselor would certainly contribute to the positive character building of the clients to finally enable them to independently achieve their psychological well-being. Ummatic counseling essentially uh, comes from the Ummatic Personality Psychology, uh, is a contribution to the broad study of Islamic psychology. The dimensions of counseling is indeed important in helping clients to resolve their psychological issues in the manner that is not only psychological correct but also Islamically upright. It must begin with counselor personality development to make such counselor congruent to the required counselor's personality. So this will turn the counselor into a role model and trustworthy in the eyes of the clients. So in return, the counseling process is an enriching program and becoming a holistic therapy session to the clients. It's not just a counseling session, but also a human development process. Now we look at the purpose, the model development. So this model is valid for someone who has been trained as a counselor with license to practice counseling process. In other words, the counselor has been trained to handle the clients with psychological issues by applying all the relevant techniques in counseling. With specific Islamic elements, the counselor must be a Muslim in order for them to get along with the model. The counseling process should be conducted and practiced by including the three integrated aspects, such as stated in the model. So the goal of the model is to help the client to achieve a holistic psychological well-being with four specific criteria, namely balanced life, resilience, knowledgeable, and independent. Uh, by having this criteria, a person will be able to survive psychologically and mentally in facing any challenges in life. So, having said that, this model will follow the standard counseling process. So, what differentiates between the conventional counseling and the integrated Islamic counseling is the content and the goal of the counseling process. Um, I propose an integrated approach in Islamic counseling through the combination of psycho-spiritual aspect of Islamic personality, namely Ibadah, Amanah, and Ilm, and the counseling principles, which is unconditional positive thought, congruence, and empathy. So this combination would produce spiritual competencies, namely sincerity, acquaintance, and wisdom. The counselor's realization of himself being the Khalifah of Allah with full awareness, three aspects of spiritual competencies, namely sincerity, repentance, and wisdom, is expected to be able to pave the way towards Islamic counseling. His service towards his client is done with the realization that it is an amanah on him to initiate the client's willingness either to exercise amal ma'ruf nahi munkar and muhasabah and islah in order to achieve the blessing of Allah. Thus, in the end of the day, Islamic counseling is functioning as an integrated approach in helping people to achieve a holistic and psychological well-being with the development of balanced life in fulfilling the needs of five elements of human nature, possess high level of resilience to enable them in accepting and facing the challenges in life, be knowledgeable to enable the differentiation of what is good and what is bad. And finally, Ummatic counseling aims to develop someone with strong characters um, to independently and continuously achieve the psychological well-being. And these elements are uh, stated in the model. And we look at the elements in the psycho-spiritual aspect of the model. There are three elements. Firstly, ibadah. Secondly, amanah. And the third one is ilm. So let us look at one by one, starting from ibadah. So ibadah is generally understood as worshipping Allah. It is also understood as a total and pure submission to Allah spiritually and physically. Spiritual refers to the heart element and factor. By physical, we mean the bodily action. It is the very purpose of the creation of mankind. Allah says in the Quran, in Surah Az-Zariyat, verse 56, I did not create jinn and human except that they should worship me. For acts and deeds to be considered as ibadah, they must fulfill the minimum of two basic criteria. Firstly, it is done with all sincerity for the sake of Allah alone. Naturally, it is done with a pure intention, which has the ultimate connotation for Allah alone. It is Lillah Ta'ala. So no other element would interfere with the purity of sincerity. Secondly, such deeds or acts must be done in conformity with the prescriptions of the Sharia. It means that a careful observation of what is right in the eyes of Islam must be made. In other words, the end does not justify the means. Ibadah is not only limited to the specific acts of rituals such as Salat and Zakat. In actual fact, all activities of Muslim can become ibadah, right from the moment they wake up in the early morning until uh, such time they wake up again the following morning. In essence, it is in itself a motivation for one to be obedient to Allah and to be mindful of the limits set by Allah, um, as we understand in the concept and context of taqwa and ihsan. Through ibadah, one is motivated to make every attempt to do things which are right and in the right way. Through ibadah, one is motivated to make every attempt to do things which are right in the right way. So another aspect of motivation is when one hopes and expects for the pleasure of Allah. With the blessing of Allah, one would enter paradise in the hereafter. These are all motivations as a result of ibadah. According to Professor Dr. Hassan Langulung, he explains that ibadah is the actualization of the divine qualities in men so that they can perform their duties as slave, which also means that a human's entire life is ibadah. He elaborates that the term ibadah also means the development, actualization, and manifestation of man's hidden potentials that can be derived from the attributes of Allah uh, that lay dormant within men. So he further explains that the spiritual motivation found in the Quran, which explains the concept of human life as an ibadah, can be a dynamizing force in directing all men's actions toward perfection and righteousness. So all the pleasure things are promised by Allah for the true believers, and produce a man who is patient and persistent in facing all the trials and tribulations in this life. So ibadah is a motivation for every self to fulfill the responsibilities or duties to the Creator. Ibadah signifies that a person fully submits himself to the will of Allah. His aim in life is to secure the blessing and pleasure of Allah. By that, he becomes motivated to fulfill his promise, which is uttered regularly, a minimum of 5 times daily in his prayer. He will do so without neglect of what is obligated upon him, being his personal responsibility, namely fardu ain, and to participate in his religious duty. What is compulsory is to be done in congregation with the understanding that no one is freed from liability. Such an ibadah is not collectively performed. So this is fardu kifayah. Certainly, a Muslim that cares for himself well and manage the affairs of his community effectively is a good and responsible Muslim. So his belief in the rewards of Allah, which include a good life in this world and paradise in the hereafter, becomes a consistent motivation to turn his whole life into ibadah in a comprehensive and holistic manner. So the second element is amanah. So amanah is the performance of trust. Being the Khalifah of Allah on the face of this earth, a person is shouldered with responsibilities to be performed. The performance of trust represents the true value of a Muslim, as Prophet Muhammad said, no iman to one who has no amanah, and no deen to one who dishonors his promise. So the world is a safe place when everyone performs and enjoys goodness and forbid evil deeds. They are noble tasks and the essence of da'wah. Being Khalifah, this trust must be performed to everyone's level best. Amanah also symbolizes integrity. Human civilization will collapse, and the fabrics of the community will be torn apart when integrity is absent, and the worst nightmare is when corrupt practices are rampant. Amanah also symbolizes honor. One will lose his honor the moment he is in breach of trust, so no one could escape being accounted for his deeds in this world. Accountability rests with Allah and human beings. So the cleverest may escape from human sights, but no one could do that with Allah. Mankind decide to be Al-Amin, it is only for the goodness of human civilization. Being Khalifa, they are accorded with the responsibility of prospering the earth. So, um, as stated by Ansari, being a Khalifa, his ibadah should not be confined only to the act of prayers, but also to the development of his personality in all dimensions. The establishment of a godly society in which human beings can live a full and integrated life in love, justice, and wisdom. And finally, the unraveling of mysteries of nature for establishing the status of Khalifa and for comprehending the majesty and glory of God. In essence, the self-concept of man being who is he and why is he on earth must be fully understood and appreciated. Maghrifah means the recognition and consciousness of Allah. If a person is conscious of Allah, he will abide by the laws of Sharia. Thus, the achievement of Maghrifah through the realization of the purpose of human creation, his responsibility, and the concept of accountability will give way to the development of congruency in human life. So the third aspect, the third element of psychospiritual aspect is ilm. So ilm is another important aspect of human civilization. Knowledge is an enabler. For example, knowledge enables civilizational development. Knowledge enables many improvements. So a knowledgeable person would be able to find the path um, for him to be closer to Allah and to be righteous. Knowledge symbolizes power. A man with knowledge will be able to overpower his lustful desires. A knowledgeable person also be powerful enough to surpass the boundary of heaven and earth. So what is important for a person to acquire as much knowledge as possible while at the same time being closer to Allah. So what is equally important is for such knowledge to be put into good practice. Um, the quality of Ummah is equally promoted and given serious attention. It is evidence that when Iqra is immediately followed by Bismi Rabbikal Ladzi Khalaq, which means in the name of your Lord, who is all creating. This is where the reference to Tawheed is overriding criteria. It means that knowledge should lead one to the path of God and appreciate His greatness. The higher the knowledge, the closer one should be to Allah. A person will become more faithful and pious as a result of this realization. Thus, the central idea is that knowledge should be put to good use, serving mankind and not to cause destruction on earth. And for one to pass the boundary of excellence in knowledge, it is not sufficient if it is just being done through reading and visual observations. It could only be achieved through detailed analysis of a given issue of subject matter and followed by written works. So the intellectual's motive to rediscover the truth emanates from the actual conditions of society rather than theoretical consideration of purely abstract nature. Thus, knowledge must be discovered, for it is part and parcel of human personality formation. And this is where the wisdom emanates and empowers the true life of human being. Now we look at the counseling principles, and where the counselors play a very important role in helping their clients to overcome or manage their symptoms with the guidance. They could also help in as developing strategies and skills as manage as well skills such as coping mechanism in order to minimize as well as manage the psychological effects. Choose. Other than becoming an active listener, the counselor should be able to help the clients in managing their stress by turning it from a disturbance into a motivation. So the ability um, to develop resilience and inner strength among those affected by the mental health issues would certainly enable them to prevent themselves from further self-destruction. So in general, counselors serve as a helping hand to those who face psychological issues and they need somebody else to assist them in trying to overcome or even solving their issues. They need someone who has counseling knowledge, um, acquire related skills and techniques, and the most important of all is a counselor with good personality. Counselor with good personality will keep the trust and will try his best to be the helping hand. Thus, Islam urged the Muslim to develop good personality to be the role model to his fellow beings. And as a counselor, there are several principles which are widely practiced by the counselors all over the world. And the main three is promoted by Rogers empathy, congruence, and unconditional positive regards. Empathy involves the ability to emotionally understand what another person is experiencing. Essentially, it is putting you in someone else's position and feeling what they must be feeling. And congruence also refers to genuineness. Incongruence is being in touch with and genuine about about own experience with ourselves and with our client. The counselor who practices uh, unconditional positive regard toward his client has deep and genuine caring for the client. He may not approve of some of the client's actions, but he does approve of the client. In short, counselor needs an attitude of the I'll accept you as you are. So the person-centered counselor is thus careful to always maintain a positive attitude to the client even when disgusted by the client's action. So we have the elements in spiritual competencies that is promoted by the model. That is, first one is sincerity, followed by acquaintance, and also finally uh, wisdom. So these are the counselor's realization of himself being the Khalifah of Allah with full awareness of the three aspects of the spiritual competencies, which is expected to be able to pave the way towards Islamic counseling. Now we look at the characteristic of the clients. Um, so Islamic counseling is functioning as an integrated approach in helping people to achieve a holistic and psychological well-being with the development of a balanced life, um, in fulfilling the needs of the five elements of human nature, possess high level of resilience to enable them in accepting and facing the challenges in life. And they are also expected to be knowledgeable to enable the differentiation of what is good and what is bad. And finally, um, Islamic counseling aims to develop someone with strong characters to independently and continuously achieve the psychological well-being. As a conclusion to this presentation, um, I would say that Islamic counseling, the general term used when a Muslim counselor includes the Islamic spirituality in the counseling process. Integrated Islamic counseling is a specific term that I use in developing this model. The term integrated being highlighted due to the specific combinations of three main aspects, namely psychological, psychospiritual elements of human nature, uh, Rogers' theory of counseling, and spiritual competencies. The main purpose of the model development is for the Muslim counselors to develop their own personality in order to help the clients in achieving a holistic psychological well-being. So the model should be universal in nature, which means as long as the counselor is a Muslim and practice the Islamic way of life, this model is fully relevant and practical. So it is important to note that this model is developed in the context of a professional, well-trained Muslim counselor. So it's my intention that by having this unique work, it might be used as an indirect approach to groom the client's personality by by uh, uh, by infusing Islamic spiritual elements in counselors with the aim that a well-trained counselor will be a good counselor to handle the mental health problems of the clients. So by this, I thank you.